See what exactly was retained from last week. I want to start by saying that the famous hadith of Jibreel that all of us know, in which the Prophet ﷺ was questioned by him about Islam and Iman and Ihsan. So that means their religion is based upon the pillars of Islam and the pillars of Iman and Ihsan. And as time went on and the different Islamic sciences were becoming more and more distinguishable, all having their roots in the Quran, but slowly they're becoming more and more distinguishable. So now fiqh is an area of study, hadith is an area of study, tafsir is an area of study, Arabic language is an area of study, usul al-fiqh and so on. This led ulama to writing books in those specific areas of knowledge. And fiqh was one of those things. And they started their books of fiqh by talking about the pillars of Islam. Because the pillars of Islam are talking about the external actions. Salah, zakah, sawm, hajj. Even the shahada, to a large extent, is an external act because it's an open testimony. You're bearing witness, you're testifying. And so the books of fiqh naturally started with these four pillars. The shahada was left to a different subject, which was the subject of Iman, or you can call it Aqidah. Iman is of course the Quranic term, and Aqidah became, knowledge of Aqaid, or Aqidah became famous afterwards. So the Shahada was for that. Aqidah also includes what? It does, but if we want to summarize from the hadith of Jibreel, it includes the Shahada and includes the 6 pillars of Iman, right? Yeah, that's the essence of the science of Aqidah, or the science of Tawheed, or the science of Usul al-Din or Usul al-Sunnah. It has these different terms. Different ulama called it different things. Fiqh took on the 4 pillars of Salah, Zakah, Sawm and Hajj. And it added also all other laws of halal and haram, family life, financial engagements, and politics and so on. So the first thing that ulama talk about is Salah, the most important pillar of these 4. And the books of fiqh therefore always begin with Salah. But before you engage in something, you need to know its conditions. The conditions of Salah. What are some of the conditions of Salah? Tahara. Let's say intention. Okay. So we can say wudu, part of Tahara. Entry of time. Good. Facing the Qibla. Covering the Awra also. Okay. 5 or 6 conditions depending on how we categorize. Yeah, purification, Tahara. So now, scholars thought, before we talk about Salah, let's talk about the conditions of Salah. Which condition of Salah should we begin with? Most of them started talking about the condition of Tahara. So the books of fiqh always begin with the chapter of purification. Not because purification is separate from Salah. We're still talking about Salah here. But because it's one of the main conditions of Salah. Imam Malik, on the other hand, when he began with the chapter of Salah, he felt that the prayer times are a more important condition. The prayer times are a more important condition, even than Tahara. And it's an interesting perspective. So his book, he starts with Bab Wuqut as-Salah, the chapter of prayer times. That's his first chapter in his book. And most of the books of fiqh start with Tahara. Yeah, most books of fiqh start with tahara. And which of the two is more important comes to light in the following scenario. Purification or prayer time, which of the two conditions is more important or takes priority? That becomes clear in the following scenario, and that is, if somebody wakes up to pray Fajr, but they only have enough time to pray, not enough time to make ghusl. Wudu is easy, let's say ghusl. They have to make ghusl. But they don't have enough time to make ghusl, or they don't have enough time to make wudu and pray before sunrise. So now, what are the options they have? Either they're going to pray without wudu, and no alim says that you should do that. Or they're going to make tayammum and pray in order to make sure that they catch the prayer time. Or they're going to make wudu and ghusl and say, I woke up late, what can I do? I'm going to make wudu, ghusl if I pray on time, alhamdulillah. If I end up praying a little bit late, then, afallahu amma salaf. The Prophet ﷺ excused the one who was not negligent and woke up after the prayer time. So Malik's approach prefers making tayammum and praying, because to him prayer on time is a priority. This is an example of how time is given more emphasis. Whereas the other three schools, the madhab of Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i and Ahmed, say if wudu or ghusl is something that you can do, relatively closely, you don't have to go miles away to get water, then you make wudu or you make ghusl and then pray, even if that means you pray a few minutes after sunrise, because you can't pray without your purification. Does that make sense? How looking at which condition impacted the ruling. Which condition takes priority impacted the ruling. And because purification was considered the more detailed condition as well, because when we talk about purification, we're talking about what to purify with, different types of purification, what invalidates purity, and so on. So it's quite a big chapter, so it became almost a separate chapter on its own. And last week, I believe, Sheikh Yusuf covered what with you? Who was here? Oh, different kinds of water? Tayyib, okay, who can give us something?
Running water, still water.
Running water, still water, okay.
And the volume of the water.
Issue of volume. So we wanted to summarize the main principles that relate to water. What kind of water can you
use them for wudu or not, or for ghusl.
So we're talking about water because we need that to make wudu, we need it to make ghusl, and we need it for a third thing, which is? Okay, yeah. Very important. And? Cleansing impurities. Yeah, wudu, ghusl, and cleansing impurities. And drinking water. That's the fourth one we can add as well. Yeah, so wudu, ghusl, and cleansing impurities, that's what relates to the fiqh of tahara at least. So now, what's the nature of the water that we can do these things with? Any water? The general rule is any natural water is pure and purifying. So, rainwater, seawater, okay, water that's running, lakes, down mountains, whatever it is, water that's in a well, that's accumulated in a well. We generally assume that water is pure. Just like we assume to have wudu, unless we're certain we have lost our wudu, we assume water to be pure, unless we have good reason that it's impure. We don't assume that things are impure because of doubt, or because of hesitation, or uncertainty. We assume it to be pure. If the water changes into something different, it's no longer water. Okay? Because Allah Ta'ala, when speaking about purification, He said, if you do not find water, فَلَمْ تَجِدُوا مَاءً, then you go to the alternative, which is tayammum. So long as what's in front of us is called water, and it hasn't been changed from its essence and it hasn't become impure, we can use that water. If we put 400 tea bags into a container of water, in a minute or so, that's no longer going to be water. It's going to be tea. Okay? So making wudu or ghusl with that is not permissible because it's not water. If it's juice, it's not water, so therefore it's not permissible to use that. Okay? However, let's say a bathtub was filled up. A bathtub was filled up with water and somebody wanted to make wudu from that. And a bar of soap slipped into the bathtub. What's this that's in front of us? Water or not? Still water. Okay, a bar of soap slipping into it is not going to impact the whole thing and turn it into something different. It's still water. So long as it hasn't overcome and completely changed the essence of this water, that water can be used for wudu, that water can be used for ghusl. However, we said before, purification means using water for wudu and using water for ghusl and using water for a third thing, which is cleanliness, purifying impurities. We're clear that wudu and ghusl can only be done with actual water. Actual water. What about cleansing impurities? Does that always need actual water? Or can it be anything that purifies? So in this issue, out of the four madhahib, the Hanafi madhab is the most flexible. And the most ideal to act upon too. Because the other three schools believe that cleansing an impurity is an act of ibadah, so you should still use only water to cleanse. But the ulama of the Hanafi school consider that cleansing an impurity has a purpose, an objective. It's not an act of ibadah in the way salah is an act of ibadah. It requires a set intention and so on. The objective is just to cleanse that impurity. So if that impurity is cleansed, whether through water, or soap, or juice, or tea, or bleach, or it's scrubbed off, we've achieved the goal, we've achieved the objective. So therefore we don't have as strict conditions when it comes to water for that third type of purification. Yeah.
Dry cleaning clothes?
Yeah, so that dry cleaning clothes is going to come back under this debate. We say the Hanafi position is the preferred view here, because to not allow purifying except through water requires clearer proof. It requires the Prophet ﷺ forbidding us from purifying with something other than water. Okay, so because we don't have that kind of evidence, we have that flexibility. The same goes with putting clothes into a washing machine and that kind of thing. If we were going to be strict and take with some of the classical fiqhi opinions, we wouldn't allow washing clothes in a washing machine. Yeah, so sometimes circumstances of life change to force us to completely neglect certain fiqhi opinions. Those fiqhi views become impractical. Yeah, and this is one of those examples.
Did you mention ocean water?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ocean water is a natural source of water. So whether it's salty or natural source of water is sweet, or regardless even of its color, we're not too fussed. We say water is pure.
We can make wudu.
You can make wudu with it, you can make ghusl with it, and that's something that ulama generally agree to. Once some people came to the Prophet ﷺ, this is a sound hadith narrated by Malik in his Muwatta. They said, we travel by sea, and sometimes we do not have enough water. We do not have enough water to drink, because we end up making wudu with that water, ghusl with that water that we're carrying with us. So in the end, we have very little left to drink. So we would much rather make wudu and ghusl and cleanse with seawater, and then keep the water we're carrying for drinking only. Can we do that? can we make wudu and ghusl with seawater? So the Prophet ﷺ said, هُوَ الطَّهُورُ مَاؤُهُ الْحِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ. Its water is pure and purifying. The seawater is pure and it cleanses. And anything that lives exclusively in the sea is halal to eat. الْحِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ. Anything that lives exclusively in the sea is halal to eat. And that's also a general principle. Anything that lives exclusively in the sea, whether it's been slaughtered or not been slaughtered, okay, whether it's just appeared on the beach or whether it's been fished out, it's all halal. Without exception. That's the view of the majority of ulama. Okay, with some details in the Hanafi school. Was there anything else on what's been mentioned before we quickly go over the issue of impurity and what that means? Yes, it was a good question. Yeah, recycled water. We take it back to the same principle. What were the three things you must have discussed last week? Smell, color, and taste. Yeah. So if we see that water has been changed, we're not talking about natural water, because we just said seawater can be salty, right? Usually is. That's not a problem. Sometimes water that's in lakes can be slightly different in color. Maybe a slightly darker brown or leaning to green or whatever it is. We say it's not an issue. But if water has been actively changed, especially if it's a small amount of water, it's been actively changed, and its color changes, or its smell changes, or its taste changes, that's where we say, don't use that water. Especially if the change is through something impure. What's impure? This is an important question because there is a difference between something that is impure and something that is unpleasant. Some things can be unpleasant, but they're not impure. Who can give an example? Blood is what?
Pure.
Pure? طيب, we'll come back to that.
Urine is impure.
It's impure and it's unpleasant. Okay, so that one's easy. It's impure and unpleasant, urine. Okay, what about something that could be pure from a fiqhi perspective, from an Islam, from a perspective of having to purify yourself from it before you pray, for instance. It's pure, but it's not pleasant. For example, let's say saliva, or
Used water.
maybe used water. Huh?
Turbid water. Water that is turbid. Mud in it, but
Maybe. Okay, good. Okay, water that's been, got mud in it and this and that. Okay. Possibly seawater. Okay, you wouldn't want to drink it for sure. It's not pleasant to drink, but people might, someone's not going to see it as an impurity. According to Shafi'i and Ahmad, even many semen would be a purity. Of course, in the Hanafi and Maliki madhab, semen is considered najis as well. Okay, many semen is considered najis in the madhab of Malik and Abu Hanifa, but it's considered tahir in the Shafi'i. And there's no black and white text on this in the Quran or Sunnah, but there are some views of Sahaba like Ibn Abbas. Yeah.
What if the dead animal fall into a pond of water?
Yeah. So a dead animal falls into a pond of water. There's a few considerations like volume of water. What was the volume you guys discussed last week? 50 gallons. We don't do gallons in the UK. What's that in liters? Or about 200 liters. Yeah. Okay. So that's taken from the hadith of إذا بلغ الماء قلتين لم يحمل الخبث. If the volume of water reaches قلتين, which is about 60 centimeters by 60 centimeters. So if you consider a volume like that, that will carry around 200 plus liters. If water is a large amount, even if an impurity falls into it, it's not a problem or a big deal. Okay. So the point is, when we talk about impurity, we are talking about something that must be cleansed before you pray, otherwise the validity of your prayer will be impacted. We are not talking about something that is not pleasant. The same applies to wudu. Wudu has set nullifiers. Doing something unpleasant does not invalidate the wudu, unless it's proven in the sunnah that invalidates the wudu. If you play with a dog, does that break your wudu?
No.
It doesn't break the wudu, it's irrelevant. Okay? If you play with a pig, does it invalidate your wudu?
Yes.
It doesn't invalidate wudu. It's irrelevant again. Okay? So, can you play, try it and, yeah, we've been forbidden from eating swine, consuming lahm al-khinzir. And Allah Ta'ala did describe it as rijs. And, I can't say with certainty that it's haram if someone's going to a farm or a zoo to pet or something like that. I don't say that's haram, but it's been described in the Quran as being impure. Similarly, if somebody carries a bottle of alcohol, that doesn't impact the wudu. In fact, maybe their hand is still pure. Unless they come to direct contact with alcohol content itself, then this is a different issue. So there is a difference between impurities that must be cleansed and between things that are maybe unpleasant or not. Wallahu a'lam. And that, the details of what's impure or not maybe can be left for another lesson. Yeah.
You said petting a dog is okay.
Yes.
What if it rubs it against your clothes?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. The nature of the impurity of the dog, the best thing we have is the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِذَا وَلَغَ الْكَلْبُ فِي إِنَاءِ أَحَدِكُمْ فَلْيَغْسِلْهُ سَبْعًا. If a dog drinks from a container of yours, then wash that container 7 times. That's the best thing we have. We don't have something saying that the whole body of the dog is impure. And even this hadith, according to most ulama, shows that the saliva of a dog is impure, right? Yeah. That would be the first thing that comes to most people's minds. According to Malik ibn Anas, Imam Malik rahimahullah, he doesn't believe this hadith proves that the dog's impure. He believes that it's just something that we do as an act of ibadah. We cleanse that container, maybe because of some kind of harm in it, okay, or some kind of other thing. Not because it's impure, but maybe because of some kind of harm or something that's not pleasant. Just like poison, is it permissible to eat poison? It's not permissible to eat poison, but poison is not necessarily impure. Yeah, poison is not necessarily impure. Also, Abdullah ibn Umar narrates, and this is in Sahih al-Bukhari, that dogs used to walk in and out of the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كانت الكلاب تقبل وتدبر في مسجد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, فكانوا لا يرشون شيئا من ذلك. And they used to not bother cleaning anything. Just because a dog walked in this part of the masjid, they would clean it. He said they wouldn't bother. Dogs would just walk in and out. So, if a person is licked by a dog, then yeah, we say wash that part that's been, has come into contact with the saliva. If someone's just patting a dog or the dog's rubbing itself against someone, that doesn't impact wudu, obviously. It's irrelevant completely. And also, it doesn't render the clothes to be completely impure. Wallahu a'lam.
Changing a diaper, if some urine comes onto your hand.
Yeah, you cleanse it. So if some urine or something comes out from changing, a diaper or a child's nappy. Do you use the word nappy here? Or you just say no? Okay. If something comes into contact with the hand, does that require wudu? Doesn't require wudu, but it does require washing the part that's impacted. That's it. Yeah.
Any liquid that contain alcohol, does it break wudu, like the hand sanitizer?
No. Any liquid that contains alcohol, anything that you touch does not break wudu. Except maybe 2 things according to some ulama. And that's touching the privates and touching women with desire. And there's debate about that too. Maybe it will be discussed later on. But anything you touch, alcohol, impurities, blood, it doesn't break the wudu. Yeah.
Anything that hunting dog fetches is okay.
Correct. And this is one of Imam Malik's arguments for the purity of dogs. That the Quran explicitly allows us to use hunting dogs. And dogs are going to be carrying, our food for us. Yeah, it's true, it's going to probably be cooked and so on. Okay, in some societies maybe, not cooked, but it's probably going to be cooked, and so that might get rid of any possible impurity. But yeah, that is one of Imam Malik's arguments on that issue. Yeah.
Does camel meat invalidate the wudu?
Camel meat, eating camel meat invalidates the wudu according to Imam Ahmed. And I don't want to take up too much of the sort of going off track, but it doesn't invalidate wudu according to the other three schools because they believe that ruling to be abrogated. And Imam Ahmad believes it to still be upheld. Quite a few of the muhaddithin and quite a few of the Shafi'i scholars were convinced of Imam Ahmad's opinion. So they went against their own Imam, Shafi'i, for this view. Okay, including Imam al-Nawawi, as well as before him, Ibn Hibban, Ibn Khuzaymah too. Yeah.
Sheikh, the follow-up on that question, right? If we clean our clothes using the wipes,
Yes.
right, and cloth gets wet,
Yes.
can you pray with that?
Yes. No issue. Yeah. Clothing that's wet due to cleaning and impurity can be prayed with.
But it could have alcohol.
Even then, once water or substance has been used to cleanse, then that's okay. The alcohol issue requires a bit of a further discussion.
When you talk about camel meat, it's halal. People don't.
We're talking about eating camel meat.
Is that camel halal?
It's halal. Oh yeah, 100%.
So why invalidate the wudu then?
No, there's some things that are halal. In fact, all the invalidators of wudu are halal. Going to the toilet and touching your wife and intimacy, so something can be halal and still invalidates the wudu. So why does camel meat invalidate the wudu according to some ulama? There are two authentic hadith on the issue.
So if you eat the meat, then you get wudu?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, I'm saying that this is the view of Ahmed. It's not the view of, the other three. Yeah.
Bleeding and vomiting. Does that invalidate the wudu?
Since we're on impurity, you say most ulama, the four madhahib, believe that blood and vomit is impure. In fact, Imam Ahmad claims that to be a matter of consensus. Some contemporary ulama mentioned the view that you mentioned, but most ulama believe vomit and blood to be impure. And that only, what does impure mean? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to make wudu. It just means you need to cleanse your body or clothing if you have that on you before you pray salah. As for making wudu from those two things, then again we have a split on this issue. Yeah.
Sheikh, if I'm traveling and I have najasa on my clothes, how do I pray? if I don't have the chance to wash it, I'm traveling, I don't have the...
There's no water.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's no water to make wudu, you make tayammum. If there's no water to remove an impurity, you try to minimize it as much as you can, tissue or some other kind of thing, and then you pray. If those clothes don't cover the awrah, then take that part of the clothes off, of course. If it's a jacket or socks, you can take that off. But if it's covering the awrah, then of course you pray in those clothes without an issue. Yeah. You had a question, and then over here, and then back there. Yeah.
What if you're actively bleeding when you're praying? Like you have a big cut and you have a bandage on it, and it gets all bloodied up. Is that still impure?
It being impure is one thing, and are you excused for continuing the prayer is another thing. The impurity is still there according to most ulama. Are you excused for continuing or not? I'm also going to leave that for, so that I don't end up, randomly taking from every chapter one ruling. Yeah. We said here and then there and then here. Yeah.
So, I have a practical problem. So, using tissue paper is a separate form of cleaning impurities because most of the Muslim world offices and outside you don't have water availability.
Yeah.
So, in that case, can you use tissue paper to clean the impurity and do wudu?
Say that again.
Using tissue paper to clean my impurities.
Are you talking about after using the toilet?
Yeah, I'm reviewing my
Yes.
and then if I do wudu without
Permissible. That's valid. Yeah. Wudu is not, wudu is not essential, but it's recommended. Yeah.
What's the ruling on a wound that is bleeding? Okay. What happens then? In that case, I have to go back?
You're talking about outside of salah or within the prayer?
Within the prayer or even right before the salah?
If it's
I did a wudu and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
started bleeding again.
yeah.
Now what's the rule?
If it's right before the prayer, the better thing to do is to cleanse it, and then to go back and pray
I don't have to repeat the whole thing.
without requirement of wudu.
Complete wudu. Okay.
Yeah, without the need to repeat wudu. That's the view anyway that we believe most ulama hold, although, yeah. Yeah, no, but yeah, bleeding to death is is a slightly different scenario, yeah.
Emergency.
2 more questions and then I think that will, yeah.
Tayammum, of course, when you do not have water, substitute wudu. Tayammum can substitute ghusl as well in the
Absolutely. Tayammum replaces wudu and tayammum replaces ghusl, yeah.
Cutting nails.
Cutting nails has no impact on purity or wudu. You don't need to make wudu, nor do you need to... It's better, of course, to wash the hands and feet and so on, but it's not a condition for the validity of salah. Yeah, Wallahu a'lam. Of course, the bleeding issue, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, in that case you would make wudu. Okay, in that case you would make wudu. But, many, arguably most scholars don't require wudu in that case. Yeah, Wallahu a'lam.
What's the ruling on nail polish, ladies?
For men?
Ladies.
For men it's haram. Nail polish for men is haram, and for women, I mean, in some cultures they have, men will even use henna, and they sometimes might put henna on the hand or even on the nails. So that's another story. But nail polish on the finger, on the nails, impacting wudu. We'll go into that some other time maybe, because it generally goes against the rule of you have to cover all parts of the body, but there's still a further investigation on that. Wallahu a'lam.
The ladies.
Yeah, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair. Sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi.